Hey, y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Straight No Chaser podcast, where we do real talk here with no filters and no apologies. And today's episode is one that y'all asked for, right? You asked for it. We're talking about something that touches every working person: paid leave. Do you understand? So whether it's sick leave, whether it's, vacation time, parental leave, or emergency time off, we're going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about how it works, why it's so messed up, right? Because it is, and who's really benefiting. Now, I'm going to give you a hint. It's usually not the workers, okay? And this is about more than just PTO. This is about labor, power, exploitation, and how America treats people who need time to care, not just for themselves, but for their children, for their lives. So I'm gonna need you to pour your coffee, your tea, your whiskey, whatever, because there's no judgment here, right? We're gonna get into it in this discussion, right? This is gonna be a great show today, all right? So first of all, we're gonna start with the basics, right? Well, what is paid leave? Paid leave is essentially any time you're not working, but you're still going to get your regular paycheck. So that could come in the form of like vacation time, sick leave, personal days, parental leave, bereavement leave, jury duty, military leave. All of those things are forms of paid leave. Now, I'm going to tell y'all something that you might not have known. Because, see, there's a catch about something. There is no federal law, none, not one, that guarantees paid or sick leave, sick time in the United States. None of it. It does not exist. I know we are a developed nation, yet there has been no passing of no federal law guaranteeing paid vacation and paid sick time. But we're the best, right? The only federal requirement we have is the Family and Medical Leave Act. That's all we have. And keep in mind, that is unpaid. That's unpaid. You're not getting any money for that. And it only protects your job, right, for up to 12 weeks. So you can get time off for serious health conditions or to take care of a family member or a newborn. That means your access to paid leave is all dependent upon the graciousness. Because here we go again with those employers, right? It all depends upon the graciousness of your individual employer. And if your individual employer doesn't like to share the wealth, doesn't like to want to include you in things and make sure your family is taken care of, well, you're going to run into a problem. And what have I told you many times over? Rich people are not the most giving individuals, right? They're not the most giving individuals. The most giving individuals tend to be people just like us, the working class. Why? Because we have an understanding of what it requires and what it takes to be who we are and to live and be the working class, right? And so we're mindful of anybody that's struggling or anybody that might have less than us. We're always thinking about that. Always. Always. Because you have to be thinking about it. Because if not for what I was taught, if not for the grace of God, it could have been me. It could have been me. That's one of the reasons why I think about it all the time. So I go, when it comes to paid leave, it is 2025. And in America, we still don't have any federal policy providing workers with paid leave when they need to take off. That's insane. It shouldn't be that way, but that is the norm. And when you ask for it, when you say government should be doing that for us, you'll have some people attack you for that. Yeah. You'll have some people attack you for that. You'll have some people attack you for it because, again, you are talking about rich people in a way that doesn't make them feel good. For some strange reason in America, we have this infatuation and love with rich people. Let me tell you, rich people, the only infatuation and love they have for working class people like us is that we show up to work and do our damn jobs. That's about it. You're not going to get anything else out of them. They don't care about your children. They don't care about your life. They don't care about your circumstance. They care about the bottom line and their money. That's always the highest priority, the profit and the money. And I try to remind everybody of that. The money is the most important thing. Not you, not your family. That's not important even to your own government. So I don't know why you would expect your employer to care more about you and your family than you do. They're not going to do that. And hell, even if you care, they're still not going to care. Ultimately, they care about the things that bring them money. That's what they care about. And in America right now, you have American citizens that going to work means the difference between life and death in multiple ways. Because if they don't go to work and earn money, they can't keep a roof over their head. They can't pay their health insurance premiums. You understand? It's like all these things interconnected with that if they don't just go to work. But at the same time, you can't afford to not go to work because if you don't have any type of paid leave structure, you can't afford it, right? But then if you go to work and you're sick, well, that doesn't help anything either. Employees, people, we are human beings with families. We breathe. We have lives. We matter. That's how we should be looked at, as we matter, because we do matter. You know what I mean? We do matter. And somewhere along the way, big businesses and companies and corporations started to matter and became more important than all the rest of us. But we don't have to accept it. That's the real tea. We're not bound to accept this in any capacity. Even when we think we are required to, we are not. We are not. Because understand, if the country doesn't have any required paid leave structure, like from a federal level, because again, rich people are only going to do what they're required to do, right? They're not going to do anything more than that. Nothing more than that. So that means that, like I told you before, access to your leave, because the federal government's not involved, is only dependent upon the employer that you have. And I'm going to tell you, back, 10, 15, 20 years ago, 30 years ago even, I would say, leave packages were an important part of a compensation package. Do you understand? It was an important part of a compensation package, because if you pay me a lot of money, but I can never afford to take a day off, well, that's not a job that's good for me when you think about it, right? There's no work-life balance there, because I can't even take a day when I need to take a day. This job has put me in a position where I am forced to be here every day, day in and day out, whether I feel good or not. Whether I have an emergency going on in my household or not is kind of irrelevant to the system, right? Because it doesn't care. It doesn't care. This is why we should have federal requirements for federal paid leave, because there ain't a whole lot of employers out here that just believe in being nice. What do I always tell you guys? Charity starts at home, and we don't live at work. Charity starts at home, and we don't live at work. You know? And and the thing is, when you have an employer that's interested in giving you paid leave, that's a great thing. But what happens if you end up working for an organization that doesn't believe in paid leave? Or they don't care? Like, it's on you. If you don't make it to work, it's on you, because you won't get paid and you got to figure it out. You know what I mean? Bigger companies tend to offer I mean, they give you paid leave. It's not great, but they give you something. Small businesses, here or there, some of them can afford to pay you when you're not at work, and some can't. And some can't. But it's not universal. Part time workers or like hourly workers, oh, they get shafted a lot when it comes to paid leave. You know, it isn't as always as cut and dry and as simple. And I think for many people, especially maybe some of you listening, hadn't even considered the fact that paid leave is not just PTO. No, paid leave is, like I said before, vacation time, sick days, personal days, bereavement leave, military time, parental leave, jury duty, all that stuff is paid leave. Imagine being required to go to jury duty because that's a requirement that we have to do, right? You're required to do jury duty, but then you don't get paid from your job. So you're essentially losing money in jury duty. The only ones losing money in jury duty is your company because they have to pay you when you have to report for jury duty. You have to do your civic duty. And they may not like that you're doing that, but guess what? That is the law. You have to. You have to. But over the decades, more and more companies are changing their paid leave structures to the detriment of their employees. It's not to your benefit, it's to your detriment. That's why we got to get out in front of this and figure out another way to deal with it. Now, I want to talk about a little bit of history when it comes to paid leave, right? You know, because we didn't always have it. Paid leave wasn't something that was always around. You know, if we want to have an honest conversation, paid leave wasn't a thing like during like the Industrial Revolution. It wasn't a thing. Folks were working 12, 14-hour shifts, 6 days a week. You worked as much as you had to work to be able to keep that job. Because if you didn't, you would lose that job. Your employer could do whatever they want. They seemingly owned you, right? They seemingly owned you because you worked for them. They owned you because you worked for them. Now, I know some of you heard me say that and went, hold on. Nobody owns me because I work for them. That's not what rich people think who own these businesses. That's not what they think who own these businesses. They feel like they own you and your entire life because they paid for it. But folks back then, they understood. They were treated like property. Like I said, you're working 12, 14-hour shifts, 6 days a week, no time off, no protections, no backup, nothing. And you know what happened? The people got tired. That's what happened. The people got tired. The labor movement happened. Folks got tired of being sick and tired of being taken advantage of, used, abused, underpaid, overworked. There is more to life than working. There is. Contrary to what rich people have you think, because they don't nearly work as much as we do. Nearly work as much as we do. But understand the system changed because people changed it back then. It wasn't until the labor movement gained strength. Oh, I said strength. Did y'all hear that? Gained strength, honey. In the earlier 20th century, that the idea of paid leave even caught on because it wasn't a thing. You just worked until you died, and that was the expectation. We don't have to accept that as our lives anymore, y'all. We're not required to work until we die just so some rich person can make a lot of money. That's how we got into having unions, due to the constant working of the American person and treating them like animals, as if they could never have a break. They could never have a days off. So guess what? Unions had to come about. Unions were the one who fought for weekends. Unions did that. Rich people didn't just give that to working class folk. Rich people didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, you know, these people are working really hard. These people are working really hard. Yeah. Let's give them some. Let's not make them work the weekends. No, unions did that. Unions did that. Unions helped to change our lives. Unions got us vacation time. Unions got us sick leave. Rich people weren't going to give that to us. So, to all of you who keep being in such awe of these people aren't, they've never seen you in the way that you see them. Never. And they never will. Because they don't value you and they don't value your family. They don't value your skills and what you bring to the table. They just want your body as a resource. But understand, we don't have a national labor standard here in America, a developed nation, but we don't have a national labor standard like other industrialized nations. That's the part they don't want you to say out loud. You can exploit workers like crazy in America. There's a way to exploit workers bigly. See, y'all got to remember that most of our paid leave policies are piecemeal policies, and they're negotiated through your job, not rights. I don't think most realize that. You don't have a right to any of it. When I try to tell people this, I try to make it clear to them like, listen, you may think you have a right to this stuff. You don't have a right to any of this because it's not set up that way. It's not. But then, turn it around though, you got countries like Sweden and Germany, right? They get a guaranteed 4 to 6 weeks of paid vacation. In America, you're only going to get that is you have to have saved that leave up on your own. And even if you did save up that leave on your own, doesn't mean you're going to get to use it. That's where use or lose came into play. Because people would amass so much leave and carry over, and companies hate to pay you for doing nothing, mind you. Even though you earn the leave, they don't like to pay you for it. They don't like to pay you for it. And so because they don't like to pay you for it, it's going to be hard to get it. And they're not going to be super generous like other countries. They're not going to be super generous like other countries. Why would they? This is America. They don't give you things for free. See, other industrialized nations, they have a national labor standard. They have paid leave policies. We're sitting around still trying to get it right. Because we don't want nobody else to have nothing that we don't have. I'm telling you, that mindset keeps us all down in that hole together. Because the rich people don't think like that. They'll tag team to get what they want and not even like each other. And not even like each other. As an industrialized nation like America, we should have guaranteed paid leave. Just like Sweden and Germany, we should have it. Even though we don't, we should have it. If you're a new parent, like in those other countries, you're like in Sweden and Germany, you're getting a year of paid leave in some of these countries, a year to be with your newborn. 12 months of continuous nourishment, nurturing, and love for you between you and your child. Not in America. Not in America. In America, you got to have the time. In America, we're still talking about if women should lose their jobs because they had a baby. That part. So you're not going to get to a point of giving paid vacation, not even paid, just paid leave for a new parent for both of them, the man and the woman. I say give it both to them. if you're really about lifting up families and creating a great country. When children are born, that's when they're at their most like, that's when, when they're first born into a family, that's when all this learning and growing is happening together. That should be able to happen uninterrupted, but not in America. Got to get back to work. Some people have a baby on a Friday, back at work on Tuesday because they don't have a choice. The system doesn't give them choices. The system says this is the job and you got to do it. You got to do it. Now remember, we didn't create this system to care for people. America's system isn't set up for that. It's created to protect companies from lawsuits and lost productivity. It's not about us. Because if it was about us, you'd be able to tell. But of course you can't, because it ain't about us. But maybe we need to change the work environment so it can finally start to be about us. In my opinion, on paid leave. And the reason why they do that is just money. It all comes down to money. They don't want to pay you or me not to work. That's really what it comes down to. Period. No matter how many sacrifices you've done for them, no matter how much work you've put in for these people, no, they don't want to do that, because to them, paying us when we're not working cuts into their profit margin. Period. And since we're being honest and we're having an honest conversation here, right? Because that's what we do here on the Straight No Chaser podcast, right? American capitalism, let's be honest, is allergic to anything that looks like compassion. Empathy and compassion, you can't do that and be a capitalist. You have to choose, right? But it won't allow you to do both, right? They never will allow you to do both. As if being empathetic and compassionate means you can't make money. And I've thought about that. In many ways, that is the direct result of, as I've always said before, it is no way to be an ethical billionaire. Barely you can be an ethical millionaire, because it really depends on how many millions you have. Because at some point, you had to do some things that were not okay. You had to ignore compassion and empathy to make the deal happen anyway. And that's what American capitalism is built on. Get as much out of the system and the people as possible and put the least amount in. That's why we haven't had any traction or anything done about, that's one of the reasons about paid leave. Because companies will say they can't afford it, but they can. They can. Look at their CEO bonuses. What you mean you can't afford to make paid leave a priority? Yes, you can. They just don't consider it to be a priority. That's the issue. This is not a priority. That's all. They don't think it's a priority. Their shareholder dividends, they got that sitting right there. The budget's real flexible when you start talking about those things, but never when you're talking about people and employees. All of a sudden, we don't ever have enough resources. They have enough. They just don't care about us. That's the bottom line. And then even when they do try to throw you a bone and offer you some leave, when they do offer you some paid leave, it's going to be structured really to benefit like higher salaried employees. It's not for everybody, right? It's not for everybody. It is not. Because meanwhile, the folks that are working that $15 an hour, that type of job, they're rationing their sick days, if they even get them, like they're meal prepping or something. Let's just keep it all the way a buck. Let's be honest about it. It squeezes them. Salaried employees, you're going to get paid leave. Because otherwise, they ain't going to get those employees. They're not going to get those people to want to come to want to work for their organization. Like I said, at one time in the American employment market, paid leave was a big part of compensation packages. And if you didn't have a good paid leave situation, that was the difference between somebody taking that job and not taking that job. You only get 5 days a year. I'm not interested. I need more time off than that. That's how they think. Now, some companies, you'll see some companies out here too, they will offer like an unlimited PTO structure as a benefit. But that's a trick too, right? Because again, ain't nothing in life free, right? Nothing in life is free, correct? Okay. So, like what we found out, like I know they've said, like, I did a little digging before I recorded this podcast. And so they do have some studies out here that show people actually take less time off when they have an unlimited PTO because it messes with your mind. See, you don't want to take too much time off because then you look like you're not really trying to do your job. But then you end up taking too little time off in the process. You actually end up taking less leave than you would have had you had to earn the leave in the traditional sense. But because you think it's unlimited, which it really isn't, because the more you use of it, at some point management going to show up and want to have a discussion, right? But because you know it's unlimited, you don't want to seem like a person that's taking advantage of the system. But the system will take advantage of you every day. We got to stop thinking like that because they don't think like that. That's us limiting ourselves. You know what I mean? That's us doing that. That's us. We got to do better, y'all. We're expecting something to change and it's not going to change. That's why so if you ever seen an unlimited PTO situation, oh, it's designed to mess with your mind. Because you're going to take less leave than you would if you just had a set number of days. You know, if you got a set number of days, you're going to watch and you're going to use it. But when it's unlimited and you don't have to think about earning it, well, now you don't want to take anything from your employer, who you didn't take anything from them because you would have earned that. That's a benefit they chose to give. So how are you taking advantage or taking something from them? You're not. You're not. I'm gonna tell you, as a person that has had to use paid leave more than one time in my lifetime, it is extremely beneficial. It's extremely beneficial. I have multiple sclerosis. There have been some times where I've gotten up and I've awakened and I've wanted to go to work, but my body wouldn't allow that to happen. Without paid leave, you can't earn income when you don't feel well or somebody in your family doesn't feel well. You end up having to choose between earning money and taking care of what's most important to you. You know? But paid leave is not it's not about just rest, right? It's about survival. That's how I look at it. Anytime I had time off, it was for various reasons. But when I didn't feel well, it was so I could recover from my illness without losing my job. You can actually get better when you're not sitting at home wondering if you're going to still have a job. You get it? You get it? You can actually recover and get well and be in a much better position if you ain't got to worry about money. You can take care of your sick child without choosing between your family and a paycheck. Because a lot of employers will make you do that. They don't have no problem forcing you to choose. And then they'll turn around and say, we're a family. How are we a family? You'll fire me if your profits slow down. We ain't family. You have conditions on this relationship. So much so that you watch me with cameras in this place. Think about it. But they love to say we family when they want to violate you and take advantage of you. It's all a game. Don't fall for the okie doke. It's all a game. Paid leave allows you have a death in your family. You can grieve that loss. without being forced to go right back to work. I remember I was in a situation like that. My mother passed away. I buried my mother on like whatever day of the week that was, and I was back. Maybe it was a Thursday, a Friday. I was back at work on that Monday. Oh, they don't give you, listen, because I was working for a much smaller company where they didn't have a lot of leave available. It was a different situation. This goes back to what I said earlier in this podcast. Everybody don't have access to everything, and it's important too. Grieving is a natural part of life. You need to be able to do that. But if you just got to go to work and make money, you technically never get to grieve. You're just going from one thing to the next thing to the next thing to the next thing. That's it. But that's how the system wants it too. Because if you have time to sit and think, you'll want to change things, and they don't want that. They just want you to toe the line like you've been doing. What I've always been telling you guys, that's what they want you to do, just enough to get by. But we don't want just that. That's why paid leave is so important. Paid leave lets you go on vacation and come back a better worker. You got time to just reset. Oh, we think there is nothing, and I repeat, nothing like a great vacation. Nothing. Even if it's a staycation, it's still I had time off. You understand? Companies should want me to have time off to come back as a better worker. But they don't think like that. Because see, when you have the time off, you become a healthier, happier, and more productive worker. But in too many places, we're treated instead like machines. If we break, we're just replaced. Yeah. If you break, you're just replaced, beloved. Nobody cares about what you're going through, what your family's growing through, how life is treating you. Nobody cares at all. Now I'm gonna take a personal moment, right? I'm gonna take a moment to get a little personal real quick about something, right? I remember one time I worked at a job in which you got all your annual and sick leave on the very first day you started working. That was exceptional because already out the gate, I don't have to worry about if something happens, I'm going to have a short check. That's not how they did it. That's not how they did it. Instead, they were like, listen, you get all your leave up front the first day. We expect you to act as a responsible adult and use your leave appropriately. Because you get all your leave for the year the first day. So if you run through it in a month or two, well, guess what? You're in a position that if you do not come in, oh, you're not getting paid. There is no leave donation or none of that. I mean, they can depending on your circumstance, but by and large, you got a lot of leave coming into the door, and if you've already taken it, well, I appreciated that. So when my kids were sick or something was going on, and I had just started that job, I didn't have to worry. I didn't have to worry. You contrast that with jobs that just don't care. Then you're going to worry. Then you're going to worry. Then you're going to constantly be thinking about what's going to happen if I can't work. What happens if I can't work? What's going to happen? Will I lose everything if I can't work? We shouldn't have to be thinking that way. But it's direct result of the system setting us up for barely surviving. And when I say barely, I mean barely. It shouldn't have to be that way. It shouldn't be an anomaly that your job cares about you enough to treat you more than just a number. That's all the more reason why we need paid leave. A lot of people, I think, get sick and ill because their bodies break down because they don't have a chance to just kind of chill and relax. Take a moment. When they need it, they need it. And it'd be great if we got to a point that we could make that happen. We're just not there yet where everybody thinks everybody needs that. Now, paid leave, paid leave is changing. There are some things that are starting to change in the environment, right? Because people are starting to see, or the powers that be, the people with the folks with the money, the entities with the money, right, are starting to see that we're tired. We are tired. And it's not just that they're seeing it, we're forcing that. So you understand, whatever I keep telling you, rich people aren't going to wake up one day and have some epiphany and decide to treat you better than they've been treating, right? You have to force it. Historically, that's the way it's always been. Because what did we say? This comes down to money. This comes down to money. So you got to force what you want to happen, and you have to be diligent about getting it. Otherwise, you won't. Like, let's look at what's happening right now. Right now. Right now. Some states, they're trying to fill the gap with paid leave, with the paid leave situation, where the federal government refuses to step in. Because that's really what it's about. It's not that the government couldn't have done anything about this prior to now. It's not a priority. It's not a priority. And so they don't care. That's the issue. It's not a priority. States like California, New York, Washington State, I believe, Massachusetts, they have paid family leave programs funded through payroll taxes. Why not? Why can't the federal government do that? They could, but businesses, big businesses, lobby the federal government so those changes don't happen. That's just the truth. They don't want those changes to happen because at the end of it all, they only want to pay you when you're working. If you're not working, you're not seen as any value to these people. I'm just telling you how I see it. You're not seen as any value to these people when you decide, you're taking a day off and they have to pay you. That's not valuable to them. To them, they're losing money. But we could do this on the federal level. Absolutely, positively. It just comes down to desire and the American people. What do I always tell you guys? The 99.9% have to stand up and say, this is what I require my government to do for me. Instead of making excuses for these companies and saying, oh, they shouldn't have to pay you when you don't work. Really? As if you're a machine. There are going to be times you can't work and you shouldn't be paid because of what? That's ridiculousness. It can be done. Like I said with those states, they have pay leave programs funded through payroll taxes. And guess what? The sky did not fall. Businesses didn't leave. They adapted. Workers thrived. So it is possible. But the big bad boogeyman that is capitalism was always going to try to convince you it's not possible. It's always that. Oh, no. We can't ask rich people to pay more money. Why not? They have it. It'd be different if they didn't have the money. But they have it. But they have no problem coming to you and coming to me, asking us for it. And we're less inclined to have it. Yet they'll ask us. Because the machine and the system works for those rich people. It's designed for the rich, designed by the rich. We have to forcibly change this system. Because like I said before, there's states in the union who've done this. There's states in the union that have paid leave. And the sky didn't fall. People still adapted, businesses adapted, and everybody's doing great. And not just them, not just those states are doing things. Other companies have done things too. Some companies have implemented a 4-day work week. Can you imagine only having to work 4 days a week but getting paid for 5? Come on now. Talk about a change in your quality of life changing instantaneously. Instantaneously. The quality of your life changes in no time, right? When you working 4-day weeks and getting paid for 5. I know it would have me all like, hey, very interested in that, because that would sound like an organization to me that cares about not only, it's easy to say you care about your employees, but you care about my mental and physical health. Because having a day off that I didn't have to pay for as an employee myself, like take it out of my leave bank, makes a difference. We have some people are experimenting with expanded parental leave. Great thing to give people more time paid off with their children. And making sure that the fathers can be there too. They're two parents. Right now, the system allows for a woman to be off. That doesn't mean she'll get paid the whole time. But a guy taking off, he has to have the leave on his own, or except if he works for a company that is family oriented and cares and tells him, hey, take off some time to go be with your kid. Because most times it ain't like that. Some companies are also experimenting with mental health days. Good. Because I think sick leave is different than a mental health day. So it needs to happen. And to those who say we can't afford it, it costs too much, why are we doing this? For the mental well-being of Americans. You're going to get better work out of your workers when you care more about them than just getting what you can get from them. You're always going to get better work from them when you care more about them and treat them like human beings. And that's just a fact. People respond differently when you treat them like people versus property. They actually start to maybe act like they want to be there and enjoy the work that they do. And when employees enjoy the work that they do, businesses win. You can't force people to enjoy it. You can't force them to enjoy it. But if you create the environment for employees to flourish, your company will win. You just got to make a decision. And understand, with all of these policies, right, there is a twist with it, right? Because many of these, most of these like progressive policies that I was telling you guys about, the 4-day work weeks, the expanded parental leave, the mental health days, and all that stuff right now is being tested in the tech industry or by startups. So it's not even your everyday workspace. These are anomalies. Where the type of company that I got all my leave up front the very first day I started was tech. Because when you're dealing in technology, you're going, the whole, one of the key pillars in technology is innovation. That means you got to get out of your comfort zone and do something different in a way that you've never done it before. That usually ends up putting you in a better situation. That's most of the progressive policies I've ever gotten, especially when it comes to leave, has always come from a tech company, and usually it was a startup. Because they're trying to woo as much good talent in that place as they possibly can. And you get that through benefits, not just money. See, that's the thing, because you can't take it with you when you die. You can't take it with you. So just money ain't enough to make a great compensation package. It's other things too, And we have had this rise of remote work in America too, which has made me go, that's the new debate now, right? Because if you're working from home, this is the question they ask: do you really need a sick day? I'm gonna give you a spoiler. Yes, you still need rest. Working from home doesn't mean you're not working. People misunderstand that. Working from home means I didn't have to leave my house and go commute to get to a place of business. But it doesn't mean that I don't get tired. It doesn't. Quiet is kept for me. Anytime I've remote worked or teleworked, I always do more hours than I do if I would have traveled. Because at least when you're traveling into the office, you got a set time, you got to be there, and I'm going to leave when I'm scheduled to leave. I'm not giving you nothing extra. Nothing. You're not getting nothing extra. Okay? Nothing. What they say, not a drop. Not having it. So it makes you go, huh, what is that going to mean for the remote worker? But even if you're working remote, you still need to take days to yourself. You can't always be on for those people. Okay? You shouldn't. And you can't. Now, I'm going to tell you another truth. Paid leave shouldn't be a privilege. It should be a right. It literally should be a right. Yep. That's why we need national legislation. That's why we need it. Because national legislation that's going to guarantee paid sick leave and vacation leave. Why not? We can pay for it through payroll taxes. Because it will protect workers from retaliation. That's what we want. Protect workers. If rich people want to make money, they need to protect their resources. And we need to make sure when we're looking at revamping paid leave and how it works, that we also include our part-time workers, our gig workers. Make it inclusive of all family structures. Because the whole goal is rich people want to keep us all divided. So in the end, they don't really have to deal with paid leave. But until we get the system to change and the things that we want, we got to keep fighting. We have to use our voices, our votes, and our platforms because no one should have to choose between a paycheck and their health. Congress doesn't. Think about it. Congress never has to choose. Never. They're in the best situation possible, but you always have to choose for your family. And that's not okay. You shouldn't have to choose. Paid leave should be a right. I don't understand why it isn't. Right along with health care. They should give that to you. A country that is healthy, a country that is innovative, is a great country. When you care about your workers, when you care about the quality of life for your people, it changes everything. I think a lot of people don't want to say that because they don't like how it feels. But that's the truth. That is the truth. Because at this point in America, so many people are having to choose between paychecks and health. And guess who wins out every time? Your body. If you don't take care of it, the impacts of that are going to show and expose themselves. You understand where I'm coming from? What did my mother used to say? You can't squeeze blood from a turnip. I think we've all heard that. And it's true. That's why you really got to think about this stuff. I challenge you all to think about something. Look at your life 10, 15, 20 years ago. Were companies providing more benefits then? Because I know I felt like they were. Like I said, I've worked in companies that fed me every day. Like it was a part of the package. Like how they're luring you in. Listen, we feed you every day, breakfast and lunch. And if you work evenings, we feed you dinner too. You get all your leave up front. You can go to lunch for however long you want to go to lunch. We do flex schedule. You can come and go as you please. Listen, I'm challenging each and every one of you to think back 10, 15, 20 years ago. Go back. What do they say? I want to go back. Way back. And just look at what it was then. As we've progressed in time, society has more technology, more things at its fingertips, but workers are being punished more. We shouldn't be okay with that. We deserve more. We are why rich people make money. Rich people aren't making money because of all of their hard work. We're doing the physical work. Yeah, they're doing strategy and all them other things, but we're the work. Then we need to be compensated fairly. And a part of that compensation, frankly, is paid leave. Yep, that is paid leave. Anybody tell you anything any different is lying. And that's the truth. Our government should be working harder for us and already should have had this in place. The fact that it wasn't in place is a testament to, one, businesses don't want to do it, but two, our needs aren't being prioritized in Congress. I don't give a damn about who's going in the women's bathroom, as long as they're being respectful. But we need real paid leave that matters. I'm gonna drop my mic there. Real paid leave that matters. Now, all right, y'all, that's a wrap on today's episode. If this hits home with you, I want to hear about it. I really, really do. I want to hear about it. Drop a comment, send a message, tell me your paid leave story. I want to hear from you. I want to know how paid leave, whether it's been a good situation for you or a bad situation for you, what your story is. Have you ever had to work sick, skip a funeral because you ain't had leave to do it, use your vacation days to care for somebody else? Like, remember, this podcast is for the folks nobody's speaking for. I need you to remember that. That's why I do this. That's why I do this podcast, because this is for the people that nobody speaks for. So keep showing up. Keep speaking up. And know this. Your rest is not a reward. You have a right to rest. Okay? You have a right to that. Rich people will have you thinking it's a privilege, and that they get to determine when you get to get access to that privilege. No. Your rest is a right, not a reward. Okay? Thank you all for listening to the Straight No Chaser podcast. And don't forget, you can catch me on all platforms: YouTube, Spotify, Patreon. Okay? I'm on TikTok, available on TikTok. I do lives every day. If you love these discussions and there are other things you want to talk about or want me to talk about, check out my Patreon and put your comments in there and let me know what you like, what other subjects you'd like me to talk about, because I do listen, just like I listen to talk about paid leave. Okay? And I'm going to end this Straight No Chaser podcast the way I end all of my podcasts and live events. And y'all already know, don't let nobody live rent-free in your head, okay? You already know that, because I make that very clear to you repeatedly. Do not feed the trolls, okay? You need to learn to starve trolls and stop giving everything to them. And you can accomplish anything you put your mind to as long as you stay consistent. Peace.